A new patch just dropped, a new meta is upon us, major changes have been made, including a series drop and major buffs to some cards we've been talking about for some time, and it's all going to get covered right now as we talk through a very quick introduction to what is being changed and how I think it'll impact the meta. This is going to be a quick video coming right off the press because this patch just dropped here. So general updates here, we do have from Series 5 to 4, Silver Surfer, Null, Darkhawk, and Sentry. This is pretty interesting because Sentry should have probably been sent to Pool 1, but we don't want to punish new players with Sentry. Darkhawk is notable because Darkhawk is actually getting nerfed a little later on. We'll talk about that momentarily, but the value proposition of Darkhawk moving from Series 5 to 4 has shifted ever so slightly. Null, still a damn good card. Very interesting to see it down in 4. Buff for anybody that has Galactus but didn't have enough tokens to afford Null at the time. Silver Surfer moving down to Series 4, which is fine considering the nerf that it's received. Series 4 to 3, actually probably more significant than the other changes because we have Agent Coulson, who's become a major meta piece for a lot of decks. In the Creator Clash tournament this past weekend, Coulson was in a ton of decks. Devil Dinosaur's back, and Coulson's a big part of that. Maria Hill, not as exciting, honestly, but good to see it in Pool 3. Helicarrier, with the release of MODOK, is actually kind of a unique card. People are starting to experiment more with Collector and other cards like that, so it's actually really nice to see what Helicarrier can do with this meta and making it more accessible in Series 3. Now, with that being said, we do have some other changes, visual effect changes. Those are all great, but that's really not what we're after right now. We're after these card updates. First of all, you have Darkhawk going from a 4-1 to a 4-0. This actually makes a lot of sense. The development team said that yes, Darkhawk was slightly overtuned, one can say, and he generally was a very good performer. However, what's worth noting here is that with Darkhawk specifically, he generally blew past that 410 power cap. Like when I see that, like if you think about most 4-cost cards, they usually cap out at around 10 power, as long as you meet a specific condition. Like if you think about like Typhoid Mary, 410, but it takes everyone down a little bit. You have, Namor, 410, but as long as it's by itself. Tuma, 410, as long as no one else is there, etc., etc. So that 410 stat line, provided you complete a condition, is kind of like the basis for a high-powered 4-cost card. But Darkhawk, it was so easy to blow past that. So with the nerfs to Zabu and others, I mean, it got toned down, but it was still super strong. And so I'm supposing that this minor change, 1 power, is significant enough to kind of tone it down ever so slightly to move it back in line with those standard 4 drops. To me, the change makes sense. I don't think the identity of the card is destroyed, considering you do play it with disruption-based cards like Rockslide and Korg, so it's still probably pretty damn good. Moving on, Thanos, a 4-8 to a 6-8 to a 6-11. This is actually huge because Thanos is one of the coolest cards in the game, but like Ordinary Harry just won the entire Creators Clash tournament with Thanos, but never really playing Thanos itself. Like Thanos was never the key part of that deck. It was the stones. And so I really do like this change because it makes Thanos actually much more viable as a card itself. Playing Thanos on turn 6, whether or not you have all the stones in play, makes it a powerful play. Whether or not you even have the Power Stone and you get the full buff. It's still a 6-11. It's significant. And so like this is a huge buff to the archetype, which kind of comes on the heels of a major tournament win, which I don't think the development team kind of anticipated, honestly, but it does change the identity of the deck a little bit. Less about the stones, more about Papa Thanos, and I think that makes sense. What we might see is a meta where like Thanos runs a little wild now, because like legit now it's just a really strong card if you consider that Hulk is a 6-12, right? Magneto's a 6-12. This is good, and the actual stones are amazing, right? Like they're really good themselves, and so like Thanos might be super overtuned now, and we might be in a Thanos meta now. So just get ready, buckle up, because it's gonna get a little wild here. Now, the biggest change, actually, I would say that maybe even Thanos was the biggest change, but the one that I think a lot of people are going to get really excited about is the Sandman. Now, Cozy and I on the Snapchat talk about Sandman all the time, about how Sandman needed to have his identity change, needed a buff, something had to happen. And here we are. Sandman gets changed from a 4-1, which was basically unplayable, to a 5-5, which is kind of comparable to what Sarah used to be. Basically a 5-5, decent body, but it has a very important role to play. It completely shuts down combo-based decks on turn 6, specifically, Sarah Surfer, any Sarah list, to be honest with you. So it is a huge change to Sandman, and remember, it's an ongoing card, so you're going to have ongoing lists that really take advantage of this Sandman effect while shutting down the opponent turn 6 play, while also allowing you to like buff everyone with Spectrum, for instance. It's a really fascinating thing. The other side to this is that like if you are against a combo-based deck, you can just drop Sandman on turn 5 and just shut it down on turn 5 while kind of not indicating it at any point prior that you were playing an ongoing Sandman list. It's going to be interesting. I was going to include like a deck list here, but I want to experiment more because like I think this change is more significant than just like add it to a ongoing list, make a whole bunch of ongoing cards and, you know, whatever. I think it's more better. I think it's better than that, honestly, because like this is a straight up tech card now at 5. Like if you know they're playing a combo list, like you know they're setting up for like Death Wave, this shatters Death Wave. This is kind of like the counter that Leader was supposed to be. It shuts down that huge turn 6. Death Wave, it just got completely cut down because this is the massive counter. Now, whether or not Sandman is good enough to actually do it is a whole other conversation. But I do think that this change is more significant than just simply saying that, okay, it's an ongoing card, there's a 5/5 that shuts down turn 6, I'll throw Spectrum on top. I think it's more than that. I think it actually kind of accomplishes what Leader intended to do originally, which was shut down major turn 6 plays, including something like a Death Wave, where you play Arrow, Death, and She-Hulk on the same turn. Absolutely insanity, right? So I love this. I think it's a huge change, but it's also a risky change because Sandman itself, like restricting the ability to play cards can be very frustrating in a card game. So I do agree with the development team's choice to move it to turn 5 because at turn 5, like you've played all your cards the prior turns. Like on turn 4, if it was too strong, it would be too constrictive for a card game, right? Just like when you get a location where you can't play cards anywhere, it can be annoying. I think Sandman is a very delicate balance here. Huge change though. Absolutely huge change. And then what we have here is a number of straight up buffs that for cards that were just weak. I actually love the Spider-Woman buff. I actually took some flack in the past because I considered Spider-Woman already to be a pretty good card. And I featured Spider-Woman in several major deck lists. In fact, I feature Spider-Woman all the time as a recommended substitution when people don't have certain cards. I actually think Spider-Woman was good, but now as a 5/8, it's even better. I'm adding Spider-Woman, to many of my decks. It's a good card. That's a ton of value. Like, very easily one of the best 5-drops. I'm not going to say, I don't want to say it's the best 5-drop. I don't want to say that, but as a 5/8 with the potential to be like a 5/12, like what more do you want? Like that's incredible, especially when you consider that like now Thanos might be running more wild. Stones are going to be everywhere. You know, that's free value for someone like Spider-Woman, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see. Namor, I actually really like Namor, but I've been leaning more towards Atuma in my list, and Namor I like to see getting this buff here. It makes him a little more viable. You kind of know what you're doing when you put Namor in. It's a little more predictable for the opponent, but he's still a super niche card. And Dagger getting buffed, I think makes a lot of sense, because the Cloak and Dagger style strategy made no sense. Move needed something. I don't think this is it. I still think we're waiting for a season pass card to really elevate Move, but I think that this is really interesting nonetheless. And we have a bunch of different updates here, and it looks like, and reading this at first glance, are they removing Sakaar? After this turn, put a card from each player's hand here. I think they changed the manner at which the play. They're changing. It's not being played. It's just being put because certain effects were having a very interesting kind of like variety. So when they reveal, they would do the effect. That's my understanding. And then obviously they changed some of the actual text. So it looks like Sakaar will not actually play the on-reveal effect of the card. Is that what it sounds like to me anyways? But again, we'll have to see in actual play here. So yeah, we'll see. Or is it the opposite? I mean, it's hard to say because the wording is kind of ambiguous here, but it sounds to me like it will no longer has a lot of weird interaction with cards like Storm and Wave as consequence of revealing mid-turn. Yeah, I understand. Like Wave would make Sakaar come down and you wouldn't be able to play the next turn, for instance. So if it's put, it's not played, so it shouldn't do the reveal. That's what I understand anyway, but hey, I'll have to check. This just came off the press, so I mean, tell us in the comments if you've been playing, you see the actual effect with Sakaar to verify whether or not it's just like put down with no on-reveal effect, so to speak. Other than that, guys, I do think that the biggest change here, ironically, is going to be the change to Thanos. Sandman is huge, but I think people will experiment with Sandman, and it'll probably still be a very viable card, but ultimately, I think Papa Thanos is getting a massive change. I got another video for you up above here where I cover the Creators Clash and the fantastic decks that we had there. And, you know, very few of them actually get impacted by these changes. But regardless, if you want to see some interesting kind of starting points for decks, especially Ordinary Harry's kind of winning Thanos deck, you can check it out above. And we'll see you in the next Marvel Snap video.